Do you ever wonder what the Harry Potter series would look like if Harry was a girl and every other character was the opposite gender? Well, Archaeopolitics presents The Girl Who Lived, a Patreon-only series that talks about just that. Every episode is based on one character or a group of related characters, and we talk about the patriarchy, what each character would do, what they would look like, how we would think about them, and much more. You can enjoy the show by becoming a patron for as little as $2 a month at patreon.com/archaeopolitics. Listening to Archaeopolitics, a MuggleNet.com podcast about politics in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. As always, I am Adri, your host and a recovering English major. Today, I am joined by Seth Wilson, my husband and reluctant Harry Potter reader, to discuss the politics of equity in Chapter 31, The Third Task of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling. All right, let's get into this, Seth.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Okay. I think reluctant is a little understatement. Like, I refuse.
Whoa, wow, this sounds great. I'm gearing up for a great episode here.
It can still happen. We can pull triumph from the jaws of the giant spider at the heart of this maze.
Cool. So you are just saying that I am forcing you to do this, is what I'm hearing.
No, but you did tell me I was doing this.
And not giving you an option to back out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how marriage works.
Yeah. Sorry.
No consent about podcasting rules.
Okay.
Just about sex.
All right.
We usually talk to our guests about their experience with Harry Potter, but you know what? Let's just talk about your experience with Harry Potter. When did you become aware of Harry Potter as a phenomenon?
One time I was in a record store, I think it was like 1999, and they were playing the movie with the snake and the sword. That Harry Potter movie, they were playing that on the screen a lot.
That could not have been 1999.
1998?
No. The movies came out after 2000.
Well...
All right. It was somewhere in the early aughts.
Yeah. That's what. Anyway, I was just there to buy records, and they played that a lot over the screens that summer.
Huh. Okay. How did you feel about that?
I don't know. I thought a movie about fighting a giant snake with a sword must be pretty cool. But also, that was about a bunch of children. English children using words I didn't understand. And I'd already sat through Quadrophenia once, and that was a bunch of English kids using words I didn't understand. So the snake fighting didn't really overcome the I wish there were subtitles.
Okay. So then when did you actually watch the movies?
When you made me watch all the movies.
Do you remember when?
2010.
Oh, honey, we weren't even known each other in 2010. Your timelines are very
I don't remember time.
bad.
Yeah, I'm not good at pegging things down to years.
We had just been married for a few months.
I'm a history major. I got a degree in history.
Yeah, this is why I'm worried. We'd just been married for a few months. It was 2014. It was one of those long weekends.
Oh, yeah.
And we watched all 8 movies during the course of that weekend.
I know the Quadron one was, which one, the third one?
Yeah.
That one's supposed to be really good, but I feel like the movies don't really pick up and hit, like, all the pieces don't lock into place until, like, the fourth one. And then the ball starts rolling.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I've told you many times, you just have to read the books.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good barrier for a big franchise, a big tentpole franchise.
But you do enjoy Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, I enjoy that so much more. I feel like it's a lot easier to understand going in.
Because it wasn't based on a book first.
Right.
Maybe. Like, you have to, like, explain everything on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I like the time period and the characters a lot more.
Okay, well. At least something good came out of Fantastic Beasts, I guess.
Could they go back to doing Colin Farrell instead of Johnny Depp?
That's what I would like, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I'd settle for Colin Firth as the bad guy.
I mean, he could do it.
Yeah?
Well, he was the king in the King's Speech, and technically, pretty much any member of the British royal family is kind of a bad guy.
Okay, thank you for that insight, Seth. Anti-imperialism, I like it.
Okay.
Anti-monarchy.
Yeah.
Sentiments.
Yeah. One of the records I was buying that summer, the Harry Potter, was on the
screen
was the Smiths' The Queen is Dead.
And it was not 1999, as we've discussed.
No, it was not.
Glad we have our timelines established.
Yes.
History major.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're talking about Chapter 31, The Third Task. What happens in this chapter, Seth?
This chapter, they have to go into a labyrinth on the Quidditch field, all the competitors in the Triwizard Tournament. And they have to get to the center of it, but it's full of like monsters and traps and things of that nature.
Obstacles?
Obstacles, yes, thank you. Those are things.
Those are things.
Yes.
There's like this mist, golden mist.
This golden mist.
Which turns the world upside down.
Yeah, that part was pretty scary. And at the center of this, there's a Sphinx, which does the traditional Sphinx thing of asking you a question. And then you answer the question, and then, there's a monster. And then if you get past the Sphinx and the monster, then you get the Triwizarding Cup.
Triwizarding Cup. The Triwizard Cup.
Triwizard Cup.
Yes, correct. And that cup is worth points. And most likely whoever gets it wins the Triwizard Tournament.
The whole thing.
Well, they've been keeping score up to this point, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Triwizard because it's 3 events, not because they're actually trying wizardry.
Well, it's also 3. It's supposed to be just 3 wizards, too.
Man, they really messed up the rules to get Harry in there.
Well, that was Mad-Eye Moody, aka Barty Crouch Jr.
Trying to get Harry in there for nefarious reasons.
Yes. To get to the cup, and then the cup would transport him to Voldemort. Or he who must not be named, Ugly Baby.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that you gleaned from this chapter? You were talking about Crumb. You were kind of worried about that?
Yeah, I usually talk about Crumb. This time, I don't really have anything to say about Crumb.
Well, you were like, fuck Crumb, until I explained to you that it was definitely Mad-Eye Moody, a.k.a. Barty Crouch Jr., acting through Crumb. Yeah,
but also just like I feel like J.K. Rowling doesn't give Eastern European people the most sympathetic treatment in her work. But this time I was like, yeah, Crumb did a bad thing, whatever. He did the even Drago thing, but he was manipulated into it, and I just don't really want to.
Okay, so he was probably under the influence of the Imperious Charm, which just controls everything that you do.
Yeah. Yeah, this time I didn't dwell too much on Crumb or the way Rowling treats Eastern European characters because he was being manipulated, which is something that you would expect for somebody who's trying to manipulate the outcome of the game to get Harry Potter into contact with Voldemort. So, I mean, that could have just as easily happened to Fleur Delacour.
Well, Fleur Delacour was definitely taken out of the match early on, so she was the first one to go.
Yeah, but I mean, plot-wise, you could have flipped the coin.
Yeah, and that would have been perfectly understandable.
Yeah, either one of those.
It just seems like for the purpose of misdirection and red herrings, Crumb would have been the better character to do that, because up to this point, we learn that the reputation that Durmstrang has is that they teach dark magic to its wizards, but that's just reputation. That's not a confirmed fact, but it's just all the biases align better as a misdirection with Crumb being the quote-unquote bad guy during this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's Rowling's favorite trick, is to misdirect us the whole time. All the while you notice in retrospect, oh, so that's why Mad-Eye Moody did these things, is just to get into the good graces of the trio and kind of learn more about what they were doing to ensure that Harry would get to the Triwizard Cup and touch it and therefore get transported.
Yeah.
Never trust a very nice person is the moral of the story, I guess. They could have nefarious purposes.
That's harsh, man.
But isn't it true, though? Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes people don't always have your best interest
in mind. Yeah.
Unless you're Harry Potter. Harry Potter usually tries to do the best by everyone.
Correct. And this is why we're talking about the politics of equity today. But what is equity, Seth?
Equity is not giving everybody equal amounts of material or resources or whatever to ensure that like they all get the same start. It's allocating resources in such a way that makes the same outcome possible.
Yeah. So the biggest visual example I've seen of equity is that baseball.
The kids are watching baseball.
The kids are watching baseball, and they're all different heights, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to see over the fence. Like equality would be giving the same height of a stump to get over.
Yeah, they all have a ladder the same size.
The same size, or a box or something that could get over. Yeah. Equity would be giving each of the kids custom-sized boxes to ensure that each kid is able to see over the fence.
Yeah, and then we're referring to the height of the boxes.
Yes.
So that they're standing on or ladders or whatever.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, in this case, I think equity would have been giving Harry the least amount of monsters to encounter in the maze because he was younger and less prepared, and giving, each wizard who has a higher skill a more challenging course through the maze would be equity. Now, this is not what happens, but that is the idea of equity. So we see that there's no equity really in the Triwizard Tournament because Harry's not supposed to be there. Wizards under a certain age are not supposed to be competing.
Yeah.
So this was not designed with a 14-year-old in mind.
Much like an R-rated movie.
Yes, correct. Wow.
Yeah.
Very deep, Seth.
I know.
Okay. Now, how do we see equity in our day-to-day life? And then we'll bring it back to Harry Potter. Or the lack of equity, I should say. Because we have a lot of lack of equity in our lives.
Well, if you are a black man allegedly selling loose cigarettes on the street, you will be put in a chokehold and killed. But if you are a white guy who decides to shoot up a Walmart, you are going to be taken alive, arrested.
And then the media is going to cover it as, well, mental health or video games or whatever.
He was a nice boy. What went wrong?
Oh, I wonder what went wrong.
So, there's that.
That's a lack of equity.
That's a lack of equity.
And even equality, if we're being, it doesn't even pass equality. I think another, a good example of equity would be if our social safety nets took into consideration things like race, things like resources available in areas.
Yeah.
So you can't just give the same amount of food stamps to everyone without taking into consideration other things, right?
Yeah. Or Kamala Harris just came out with her student debt relief plan, which was you have to own a business for 3 years in a disadvantaged community to get, and it was just so ridiculously, and basically means tested in a way too, that made it there's not a lot of equality there because not everyone would be able to go start a business right out of college.
Yeah, that's really hard. And to sustain a business for 3 years when most business fail within the first year.
And what kind of business are you going to start in disadvantaged, an underserved community? It's probably going to be a dollar store which doesn't sell fresh food and vegetables. Or it's going to be a payday lender or a pawn shop or something that just preys on people,
So you're just if you're going to have a quote unquote successful store in a disadvantaged community, you're going to have to prey on those that live in that community, therefore making things even worse for that community. Probably.
So where equity would be more I guess hey, if you owe this much, right out of college, we'll just go ahead and forgive it.
Or more like Elizabeth Warren's approach, which is based on income.
Yeah.
That's equity.
Yeah, that's equity.
Yeah.
So there we go.
There we go.
I think hopefully we didn't muddy the waters too much.
Well, again, equity is all about meeting people where they are, and equality is not really taking that into consideration and just giving out the same for everyone.
Right.
So in the way that we understand the world now, equity is far more important than equality.
Right.
Because not everyone gets access to the same resources, and we fail to understand those little things that kind of bring us up to where we are.
There's based on sort of like the way that a lot of the rhetoric we use around government and our society, we sort of talk about equality being built in to society. Like, oh no, this is America. We're all equal under the law. And so everyone just assumes that equality exists, but we've seen one that's not the case, never has been the case, and say, oh, well, no, Martin Luther King, so now we're all equal. Or whoever.
Or women.
Susan B. Anthony, so now we're all equal,
Or women have shattered the glass ceiling, so now we're all equal. And that fails to take into consideration like implicit bias and other things that women need to overcome in the workplace.
Which is also why I think like talking about equity is a lot more helpful than talking about equality, because the language around equality usually gets co-opted to, well, somebody did something and now it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, well, yeah.
Equity, again, about meeting people where they are and seeing why they may be struggling or may not achieve the same as a, hypothetically mediocre white man. Yeah. So in this chapter, we see that, and throughout the series, we see that Harry is really preoccupied with being fair and doing the right thing and meeting people where they are. Whereas we see characters like Malfoy, which we don't see in this chapter, are not even worried about equality, let alone equity.
Yeah.
So where do you think each of the characters we meet in this chapter fall? So we have Harry. We know that he thinks about fairness. Do you think he thinks about equality or equity?
I think he thinks about equity.
And maybe that's informed by his experience at the Dursley household.
It's the Dursley house, basically, like as an orphan who's cut off from the resources that the rest of the family has, and also that sort of disconnect where he just knows this isn't his family, this isn't his life. He has an inkling that there's something else to his life, but he doesn't know what it is. So I think that sort of ache for family and belonging and a world in which he fits in informs his quest for equity.
Okay, so what about Molly Weasley? We see her briefly in this chapter, and she comes to Harry because his family won't, like the Dursleys won't. I think she thinks about maybe equality in terms of all wizards are created equal, they all have magical powers, but I don't think she sees herself as someone who lacks equity or financial resources.
Well, the Weasleys, I think, are good about equality because the way they take in Harry and treat him just like one of their own kids. And in a world where everyone treats Harry Potter as unique and special in one way or the other, they treat him just like one of their own kids, just another kid who needs like a hot meal and a hug and
love, affection.
Yeah. So I think they're definitely more worried about equality and making sure there's a way. Equality can be good in the sense that you're not being singled out for being different, that you're treated just like anyone else. Is just that can be a good thing. When you're not being singled out for special treatment, because a lot of times when you're being singled out for special treatment, it's not the good kind.
Yeah, and then we barely see Bella Weasley, who works at Gringotts. I don't think I know enough about Bill Weasley at this point to understand if he thinks about equality or equity, but I would think that growing up in the Weasley household, for sure he thinks about equality.
Yeah.
Not sure about equity. Now, we see Cedric Diggory. This is someone who's very worried about equity as well, being a Hufflepuff, being a people person, is someone who thinks about fairness and keeping score of you did this for me,
Yeah.
and you've helped me so far. Please just go ahead. Victor Crumb, what do we think? Just like an equality, like
probably like, well, we all started at the same place in this game. Really, it's up to you to get.
Well, and actually, the way they start the game is a little bit about the opposite of equity. So they start the game like Cedric and Harry are tied for first place, so they start the game first. Then Crumb, who is second place, and then Floor, who's third place. So they all don't have the same starting points. The people who are ahead in the game start before in the maze. So that's the opposite of equity.
Okay.
So they get, just like in life, like the white man starts like ahead.
Well, but also I think Crumb had been like, Crumb's thing was like, well, we all, in terms of like physical space, in terms of the rules of the game, like we all physically start from the same place.
Yeah.
Or,
if not at the same time, but at the same place.
Yeah, or the same conditions.
And we've all been through the same kind of trials.
Yeah.
All right, and Fleur Delacour.
I don't feel like I know her well enough to...
I think she might think of like equality, not equity at this point.
Yeah, and in the brief glimpses I've had in this book, she does not figure in largely, so...
Correct. Because she's a female character.
Oh.
Yeah, I said that. All right, so we see that happening in the chapter. Do we have any thoughts of anything else that might like be happening? I know we've talked about briefly Barty Crouch as Mad-Eye Moody is kind of making sure that Harry gets to the cup. And being, as he is the least advantaged wizard in there, that could be seen as a little bit of equity. But as we know, his intentions are nefarious, so it's definitely not equity.
Right.
Like, you can't just help someone out to their death.
Yeah.
And be like, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
And call that equity. Oh, another example I wanted to talk about is actually my quote. So let's get into our quotes.
Okay.
All right. So my quote comes in chapter 31, obviously, because that's what we're talking about today. But it's on page 629 of the hardcover first edition of Harry Potter. You are very near your goal. The quickest way is past me. So will you move, please? Said Harry, knowing what the answer was going to be. No, she said, continuing to pace. Not unless you can answer my riddle. Answer on your first guess, I let you pass. Answer wrongly, I attack. Remain silent, I will let you walk away from me unscathed. I thought this was a great example of a form of equity because this maze is basically all about physical prowess, but the Sphinx is all about mental agility.
Mm-hmm.
And should you not have the mental agility, let's say you're someone who only has physical prowess, you're still allowed to just not answer and go about your way in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's built in as a form of equity that gives you options depending on your strengths.
No, I agree that is equity. It definitely does let you choose your preferred way through the course, whether
Whereas other obstacles wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah, the other were the dragons and the underwater bit and the...
Well, and even within the maze. So you're talking about the first two tasks, right? But then even within the maze, the golden mist didn't give you an opportunity to just not pass it, right? Like, it just engulfed Harry. Or, certain things attacked Harry or the other contestants, and that was all about feats of physical strength.
Yeah.
And this was about mental strength, and yet it gave you the option to not go through with it.
Yeah. My quote is the very short one. Yeah, said Harry. Yeah, we've helped each other out, haven't we? We both got here. Let's just take it together. For a moment, Cedric looked as though he couldn't believe his ears. Then his face split in a grin. You're on, he said. Come on. He grabbed Harry's arm below the shoulder and helped Harry limp toward the plinth where the cup stood. When they reached it, they both held a hand out over one of the cup's gleaming handles. On three, right? Said Harry. 1, 2, 3. He and Cedric both grasped the handle.
Ooh, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I wonder what happens next.
Well, there's a jerk.
Ooh, there's a jerk. There's always a jerk in life.
It's me.
Not you. Go ahead.
But I feel like that just speaks to Harry's essential nature as somebody who's deeply I wouldn't even say interested in fairness. I think it's so deeply ingrained in him that he doesn't have to think really hard at it. It's just part of his nature, so that, you know, he feels Cedric won. He feels like Cedric rightfully won and wants him to go get it. Cedric's the one who's sort of demanding, like, no, you take it. You're, you know, there's that back and forth. And Harry's sort of answer is based on compromise, but also, you know, this idea of fairness and equity. Like, okay, well, we'll do it together.
Yeah, and then he says something like, Hogwarts will have champions, you know, because we're both representing Hogwarts.
Yeah, and it's not a Hufflepuff versus Gryffindor thing. It's going to be a come in together, win as a big team, which is total Harry stuff. Harry
as the hero.
Harry's a hero, but Harry's a team player.
Yeah. See, that's very insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think I know the answer to this. When we talk about equity in this chapter, and we've talked about the characters who believe in equity versus equality, who represents the politic of equity to you?
Harry.
Why?
Because he sees things more in terms of outcomes than in process. So he doesn't see, like in my quote, he doesn't see this as in a legalistic way that sort of Cedric is, where he's like, tit for tat, I did this, you did this, let's settle this up like an account. He sees it more as based on outcome, and, you know, he feels in this situation that Cedric rightfully deserves the cup based on the circumstances, you know, his injured leg, and Cedric's closer and more able to reach the cup. But it's only when the question becomes like, when it's thrown into question, it's only then does he sort of fall back on his nature.
Well, it's really interesting to me that you talk about outcomes, because the work we do, so for listeners who don't know, we both work at a nonprofit right now, and the work that we do is based on outcomes. Actually, your department tracks outcomes for all our programs, and my department writes grants that focus on outcomes and our processes, right? So what you're saying is Harry is focused on outcomes, which, as we all should be when we're thinking about equity.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing grants, or when I'm directing people to write grants, we talk with program directors about outcomes and how we get to the outcomes that we get, because we have really great processes to get really good outcomes for our populations that we serve. And one of the things that have made us successful in our work as a nonprofit as a whole is that we do, we call them different things in each program that we have, but it boils down to this: individualized service plans. So we meet the client where they're at, and we provide them with the resources they need to get them where they need to be. So let's say you have someone who needs...
Well, we do a lot of work with homeless populations. So maybe someone who's homeless, the first thing we believe in a housing first model. Mm-hmm. So the very first thing we do is get that person into housing. Whereas some of our other clients are in a stable housing situation and have maybe like a stable income. So we meet them with other needs to kind of get them where they need to be. Whereas, they don't necessarily need help bolstering their income or...
Yeah. And sometimes even when we do a housing first thing, we just don't put them in housing and forget them, right?
Yeah.
So it's more about housing first. Yes, correct. But also we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs and barriers those clients have in order to maintain that stable housing.
Right.
So some clients may need to get their car fixed. So we help with that. Some clients may need pet deposit. We help with that.
Yeah.
Some clients may need job training. So we help with that. Resume training. So whatever the client needs is where we meet them and what we provide.
Yeah. Which is, I guess we're trying to take the long way saying like, this is not like the ends justify the means, which is the same thing with Harry. I think that's what makes Harry and Voldemort like interesting foils for each other, is that Voldemort believes that ends justify the means, and he'll kill, steal, and plunder whatever he has to get what he wants. Where Harry also believes that like the outcome is important, But for him, because he's an innately decent character, his outcome is like whatever is the best for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And do you think that in your experience, you got that from the movies?
Yes.
You did? Okay. Do you think you've gotten a deeper sense of who Harry is, though, through the 4 chapters you read?
Yes.
How so?
Well, I mean, kind of, because oddly enough, most of what I've read I think everything I've read revolves around a sporting event. I don't think I've read a chapter where Harry's not participating in a sporting event.
All right, we'll fix that because you're going to come back. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he said resigned to his fate.
So, and I guess competition is supposed to bring out the best in people. So,
I mean, it can be also the worst.
The worst in people. Yeah. It's supposed to reveal character. Your
true nature.
Yeah.
And in my case, that means a gloating, horrible person.
And in my case, it's more of a Whitman-esque. I'd prefer not to.
No, just kidding. You know I'm not that horrible.
You're not. You're not. But I'm still I'd prefer not to kind of person.
Except on trivia nights.
Bar trivia.
Which we have just stopped doing because...
I don't want to go back to that life. It brings out something bad.
I don't know what... Listeners, I don't know how to explain to you that this sweet, caring, really awesome dude just is transformed into like a horrible caricature of
bad person.
Just a bad person.
That's the only Ruthless.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this. Before we started dating, I was at bar trivia one night and you and Jeff elbowed past me when we were trying to get the bonus question.
Oh, yeah. No, I'd step over a dead body to get the... If it was bar trivia, yeah, I'd do it. Yeah, it was bad.
Guys, he had a crush on me and he still elbowed past me. This is how terrible it is.
Yeah, it brings out something bad.
You know what? I'm thinking about this and you're so lucky I still married you after seeing that.
Yeah.
You're lucky I went out with you.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, guys, here is that I am the bigger person.
Spiritually. Not like she's physically bigger than me.
I mean, I'm getting there because you're losing a lot of weight.
I'm still taller.
Okay, that's fine.
I just don't want people to think that you're growing into a gigantic person like Hagrid.
Or like Madame Maxine.
Is she?
She's half giant as well.
Oh, wow.
She is the Beauxbaton headmistress.
Interesting.
You don't remember this from the movies?
No.
Anywho.
If the movies wanted me to remember things, they need to be set during the Jazz Age and talk about creeping fascism.
Can I get to my character now?
Yes.
So my character that represents the politic equity is Cedric Diggory, because I know you're talking about Cedric like being really concerned about the legalistic approach, but he didn't have to help Harry, right?
He didn't.
And Harry didn't have to help him. They just helped each other. One, because I think there's this whole like we're both from Hogwarts thing they have going on. And even though they're from different houses, Cedric believes in fairness. So does Harry. And that's how they bond over that. Even though they both like the same girl and there's this whole thing about, you know, Cho and Harry and Cedric, like this like weird situation going on. But Cedric is interesting because he's trying to use a, like you said, a legalistic or like an approach that is just about, no, you deserve it more, rather than fueled by emotion like Harry is. He's all about the logic of the situation rather than the emotion of the situation.
I think in some ways, and I'm falling back on my knowledge of the movie, mostly through the movie here, when we're talking about competition revealing character, I think this competition has probably been very good for Cedric, because he was sort of a big man on campus dreamboat kind of guy, was he not?
Yes, and we spoke about. I think I spoke about this on a future episode that I've recorded already. That although we love Robert Pattinson, he was not the best cast for this. He does not show that like dreamboat thing that we all.
Well,
imagine.
He's a handsome man, but.
Yeah, but he also has like, you know, like dark shadows under his eyes type thing. It's not like a dreamboat.
He does a lot better in non-franchise movies.
Yeah, I know.
Outside of properties that are franchises, he's really a really riveting
actor.
Yeah.
this competition does not bring a good end to Cedric Diggory, as we'll see next chapter.
And of course, I'm just going to go with Harry because this chapter is really mostly all about Harry and Cedric.
Well, of course, like the entire book is about Harry.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
is there a book that is not about Harry? It's called Harry Potter and.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious again now that you've read these 4 chapters that are basically all events. How do you feel about book versus movie right now? Even though I know it's only 4 chapters, and we talked a little bit about this as it concerns to Harry, but do you feel that there's some magic in the books that may not be in the movies, or the other way around, and how so?
I feel like the movies are a little bit easier to grasp once you get past the first 3.
Okay.
But I definitely can see how there's more shadings and subtext and stuff you could get from the book that aren't necessarily going to translate to the screen because they have to streamline so much to get stuff on the screen.
Well, another thing we got last chapter that gets kind of insinuated this chapter is that Neville's parents have been rendered insane to the point where they don't recognize Neville by the Cruciatus curse after Voldemort's demise. And that's something that is not included as much in the movies.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I can't remember if that was in the movies or not, but if it was, it completely
escaped you?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, not great.
Not great for the Longbottoms.
Well, this should have been something that is explained in better detail in the movies because it speaks to the sacrifices that the wizarding world has had to make because of the rise of a fascist, racist piece of shit.
Yeah, which is why I think Fantastic Beasts kind of sells it a lot better from the jump.
Well, but Fantastic Beasts is also all about the rise of Grindelwald.
Yeah.
Grindelwald.
Yeah.
It's not about, like Grindelwald was a bad actor this whole time, but it's more about the rise of power. Whereas Voldemort is just rising to power again after book 4. Mm-hmm. And everything we know about Voldemort's rise to power is just, knowledge passed on through survivors. And there are not many of those in the wizarding world in Britain. I kind of know what media you've been consuming, but what media have you been consuming that you really enjoy this week?
Have I really enjoyed this week? Oh, Jim Henson's The Storyteller is on, I believe, Hulu?
Okay.
No, Prime.
Prime. Okay.
And really, if you haven't seen those, I loved those when I was a kid. I think it's just the Greek myths. Really, if you like Harry Potter, you will love Jim Henson's The Storyteller. They're just so well done. Dramatizations of really well-known stories. I watched a couple of the Greek myths yesterday. The Theseus and the Minotaur and Icarus, and just they're so good, and just the craftsmanship and care put into them is they're just really great. So,
oh, that's awesome. I have been reading a book. Well, I've been listening to a book because I don't have time for reading anymore because work. But it's called The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and it has a Mexican-American protagonist, and it's fantastic. It is about these twins. One of them is very lucky and wins a bunch of contests, and she wins a vacation to Hawaii for her honeymoon, and then everyone gets sick at the wedding except her sister, the twin sister protagonist, and her sworn enemy, her new, the brother of her brother-in-law, and then they pretend to be the newlyweds, so that the vacation that is already paid for by prize money is not wasted, and shenanigans happen.
Shenanigans, you say?
Shenanigans. It's pretty good.
Nice.
I think it falls under the category of chick lit, but I still enjoy it. You know how I enjoy my strong, opinionated female protagonists.
Yeah.
I vote that we ban that word, or we co-opt that word to not mean something derogatory.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for the show today. You can email me at info@Akiopolitics, tweet at me at Akiopolitics, or, follow me on Insta at Akiopolitics. How did you like the show? Let me know through all those channels that I just mentioned. Join me and a special guest next week that is not Seth Wilson this time because I got another one. And we're going to be discussing chapter 32 of Goblet of Fire, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Thank you so much for bearing with me last week when I couldn't make it because I had lost my voice. And hopefully this will not happen again. But until then, politics managed.
Support this podcast for as little as $2 a month on patreon.com/Akiopolitics. Follow the pod on social at Akiopolitics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Email me at info@Akiopolitics.com with your thoughts, theories, and favorite moments of the series. You can also leave me a voicemail to be featured on the podcast at 915-996-1699. Theme music is Think Big by Scott Holmes. This podcast is brought to you by MuggleNet.com.